Today, you are going to learn how can you compare decimals. Scientists collected and measured the lengths of different cockroach species. Which cockroach had the greater length, the American or the Oriental cockroach? Comparing decimals is like comparing whole numbers. So when we compare whole numbers, we always look at the biggest digit. Let's see. We want to know about the American cockroach, which is 3 and 576,000 centimeters. And we want to compare that to the Oriental cockroach, which is over here on this side, which is 3 and 432 thousandths of a centimeter. So we have to decide where they go on this number line right here. Let's look at our steps. So step 1. The first step we're going to do is line up the decimal points. Very important. We always start at the left because that's where your greatest digit is, and we compare the digits of the same place value. So if we look at the place value, in our ones place, we have 3s for both of them. But in our tens place, I'm going to highlight it in red. I have a 5 and I have a 3. Since 5 is greater than 3 and 576 thousandths is going to be greater than 3 and 432 thousandths. So in step 2, we're going to find the first place where the digits are different. We did that already. I'm going to highlight that in blue. It is in the tenths place. Since we know that 5 is greater than 4 and 5 tenths is greater than 4 tenths, then we know we can go back over here and we know that this decimal is going to be bigger. If we're going to place them on the number line, the American cockroach is 3 and 576 thousandths. So we have 3 and 5 tenths over here. So it is going to go somewhere after the 3 and 5, 3.5 or 3 and 5 tenths. And if we're going to look at the Oriental cockroach, this one is 3 and 4 tenths, so it's going to go over here. So we can see that the 3 and 5 tenths, the one that is 3 and 576 thousandths is going to be greater than the one that is 3 and 432 thousandths. Let's look at the convince me. So at the convince me, it says, Valerie said 12 and 68 hundredths is greater than 12 and 8 tenths because 68 is bigger than 8. Is she correct? Well, let's write out these decimals and let's line them up. So we have 12, I'm going to write that a little bit darker, 12 and 68 hundredths. And I'm going to write the other one in blue. We're going to write it right underneath, 12 and 8 tenths. So we want to know which one is greater. Well, if we look at it, the 12 and 68 hundredths has more digits, but in reality, the 12 and 8 tenths is going to be greater because when we line up the digits, 8 is greater than 6. And we can always put a 0 here. And so we know 12 and 8 tenths is going to be greater. I'm going to write that over here. 12 and 8 tenths is going to be greater than 12 and 68 hundredths. Let's go ahead and do the guided practice together. You can go back and read this other example if you're still confused, but we're going to move on for now. It says scientists measured a Madeira cockroach and found it to be 3 and 44 hundredths centimeters long. Toby says that the Merida is shorter than the Oriental because 3 and 44 hundredths has fewer digits than 3 and 432 thousandths. Is he correct? Explain. All right, so let's line up these decimals. We have 3 and 44 hundredths And then we have, I'm going to use red, 3 and 432 thousandths. Okay, just because a number has more digits does not mean it's bigger. We can put a 0 right here to hold the place value. If we want to see which one is greater, we're going to compare the digits. Start with the left side. Well, the whole numbers are both 3, so those are the same. We cannot compare those. Our tenths are both 4. Those are the same. We cannot compare those. But now, if we look at the hundredths place, we have a 4 in our top number and a 3 in our bottom number. And since 4 is greater than 3, the top number is going to be bigger. So she is incorrect because she had the misconception that just because a number has more digits, it's greater. It does not work that way with decimals. So in reality, 3 and 44 hundredths is greater than 3 and 432 thousandths. All right, let's look at number 2. We want to know which number is greater, 3 and 692 thousandths or 3 and 697 thousandths. So if we're comparing these numbers, we have both of our ones place are the same, both of our tens place are the same, both of our hundreds place are the same, but the first number that is different is going to be our thousandths place. So we have a 2 and a 7. And since 7 is greater than 2, we're going to say that 3 and 692 thousandths is less than 3 and 697 thousandths. It's going to point at the smaller number. All right, let's look at number 3. So if we're looking at number 3, we have a 7 in our ones place, that's the same. We have a 2 in our tens place, that's the same. Our first digit that is different would be our hundredths place. We have a 1 and a 0. And since 1 is greater than 0, we are going to point to the smaller digits. 7 and 216 thousandths is greater than 7 and 203 thousandths. All right, in numbers 4 and 5, we have to order the decimals from least to greatest. So I'm going to underline the one that's the least first. So if we're looking at our digits, they all begin with a 5 in the ones place, okay? So I'm going to highlight that. They all have a 5 in the ones place. In the tens place, we have a 5, a 6, and a 5. So the one that is least is going to be this one because it has, I'm going to circle it actually instead of underline it. I'm going to circle it in red because it has a 5 in the tens place where the other two have 6s. So if we're going to order them, the red one is going to go first. I do not have a lot of room here, but I'm going to try to write it. So we have 5 and 540 thousandths would be our first one. And then if we're going to look to see the next one that is going to be the least, I'm going to highlight in yellow. We have 6 in our tens place. Now we come to our hundredths place and we can see that we have a 3 and a 2. And since 3 is greater than 2, then our next smallest one is going to be this one, 5 and 625 thousandths. Whoops, sorry. Did not mean to do that. I'm going to fix that for you. 5 and 625 thousandths. And so then our greatest one would be 5 and 631 thousandths. Okay, looking at the next ones, I'm just going to number them on top because I don't have a lot of room here. We're still going from least to greatest, so least is the smallest, and we have 4 digits here. So starting with our ones place, we have a 0, a 1, and a 0. So our 2 smallest are going to be zeros. Looking at the ones with 2 zeros, we have a 6 and a 6, so that's the same. And then we come to a 7 and a 9. Well, 7 is smaller than 9, so this is going to be the smallest one right here. So I'm going to number that with the number 1. This is going to be the next smallest. So I'm going to number that one, whoops, with the number 2, if you can see it. Now we have 2 left. And I'm going to look at the 10th place. So in the 10th place, I have a 5 and a 6. Since 5 is less than 6, this one is going to be number 3. Sorry, you can't really see that very good. And then this last one right here is going to be the greatest. So it's going to be number 4. So we have 1 is our first one. The last one would be the second least, and then 3 and 4. All right, you are going to do the rest of the problems on this page, and then you're going to check back in with me.